Okay.
Okay, we're recording now, Rex, so we didn't forget that.
I'll call the meeting to order. Thank you, everybody. Help me remember, seems like forever ago we had our last meeting. I don't know why.
I know.
I believe we, so, I won't go through in detail the virtual meeting conduct. Just want to state again for the record, when we do have a vote, if there is a vote on anything, I'm going to ask for hands, and then we'll affirm it verbally after we've looked at the image of everybody, as long as all the people that are voting are tuned in with video. I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as proposed.
I second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Yeah, aye. Any nays? No nays? Okay, no abstentions. That passes. The minutes of the March 25th, 2021 meeting, I'll make a motion that we accept them as presented. Any changes, or do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That looks unanimous. I can't see everybody at once on my screen, so I'm relying on you, Linda, okay? Audience of citizens, is there anything that anyone would like to bring up to us that isn't already on the agenda, or that anything, a member can bring up, and pretty much anything in our session? Nothing there. So we're going to go back to, we're going to not go back, we're going to go to item 5.1 to discuss the chapter draft revisions. And Mark, help me out, or Linda, we were at item 4 was the next item to review, correct? I think we got
Correct.
through 3.
Yes, we're at 4.
Okay. And that there was a question about, what we're going to do. I just want to go through all the proposed changes. I would like to spend a little time on the email that was sent out about the open space issue that just looking at who's in the meeting. Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
Yeah, Paul, you
anybody
sent
else having
out an
trouble?
email. And I want to give you adequate time to talk through what it was. I appreciate that you sent us the email. I'm not going to bring that up on my screen. I'm going to ask you to read out loud what you put in the email. I did read it, but I want to make sure everybody has the same information out there. If we could start with what Paul sent out as an email. Is there anything anyone else wants us to bring up separate from starting at Article 4? Okay. That said, Paul, could you speak to what you sent out in an email?
I keep losing the Zoom. Is anybody else having trouble?
No.
No.
No,
Oh, wow. Great charter. $80 a month.
Well, we all have charter though.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, so I have missed the last 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, we're back. We're in the meeting. We're going to start our general review at Article 4, which is picking up where we left off after the last meeting. And I'd like to try and tear through as many of the points. But what I just brought up was that you had sent an email, Paul. You had sent an email out to us about your concern, and I wanted to bring up any specific concerns from members that they would like us to address, even before we get into the regular review, so that make sure that anything that's a topic of discussion from a member, or ad hoc members, anybody who's part of the meeting, I want to make sure that we discuss those and get them on the table for discussion. And then if there's interest in including them, we indicate that. And if we're going to pass over something, that. And then the first one that comes to mind, Paul, is what you sent an email to us about.
Right. I had 2 concerns with joining this commission. One was with open space, which we did deal with, and I'll take it from there. And the other was with FIPAC. I have always been concerned, and this goes back a number of years that FIPAC, there is really no definition of what FIPAC is to do. And there's not much indication in this charter at all. And one of the specific things that I was hoping that we could talk about and maybe do something about is that if a committee or a commission makes a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and that requires an expenditure, just take open space, because that's what I'm on as an example. We want to buy a piece of property and we take it to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen approve that. I think it is FIPAC's responsibility at that point to find a way to fund that proposal, and that they should not nitpick it or cherry pick it or anything else. And with good financial consideration, of course. I mean, if something can't be done in the fiscal year that you're in, and you plan it for the following year, or you do it over a 2 or 3 year period, like Rec Park. But I don't believe that when a commission has gone to great effort to make a recommendation and the Board of Selectmen approve it, that it should then be subjected to, possibly being shot down completely. Particularly when FIPAC may have no really information on the project at all.
Okay, so that's the point with regard to FIPAC. And is there anything you want to make about open space, or is the point you made about FIPAC really in part related to open space acquisition proposals?
Well, I mean, it is a lot of our experience with them, but I think that what we had discussed about open space was that it should probably go to, what's the term? Help me out, Mark.
To town meeting?
No, to,
8-24 referral?
Well, I think what we had talked about at the time, if I may jump in, was that it may need to be focused on the ordinance and re-examining that ordinance and tinkering with the ordinance to make it be more functional, to Paul's point.
What aspect of the ordinance? Could you be a little more specific? Because I'm drawing a blank on it. I apologize.
Well, there's an ordinance, I can't tell you what the number is, but there's an ordinance that deals with the use of funds that have been set up for open space purchase. It was an ordinance that was created to track the enabling language in the statute, but it may go in some cases beyond the enabling language, or it may be such that the enabling language would involve some variation. But in any event, it's really in the interplay of that statute and the town ordinance that the issues that Paul raises with respect to FIPAC should be worked out rather than being in the charter, because the ordinance can be amended more frequently than every 10 years if we find we make a change and need to adjust it again.
yes.
So are we all in agreement? I remember some conversation. I apologize. There's a lot that I don't remember from the prior meeting, and not just being completely transparent about it, but are we all fine that delving into a charter change with regard to use of funds in the ordinance is something we'd rather leave in the domain of the Board of Selectmen as the enactors and enablers of ordinances?
Well, this, Henry's right.
That way, let me just, I was asking the rest of the commission. I think we know how you feel. Anyone
Rick,
feel
I
that?
don't think I understand the question you're asking.
Right.
And also, I think that Paul's point, although he used open space as an example, it wasn't just about open space. And if you look at his email, at least at one point, he sent an email which said, if the Board of Selectmen has approved an expenditure, then when it goes to FIPAC, it should be incumbent upon them to figure out a way to pay for it. And if paying for it is going to result in, a tax increase or some other issue, then they should come back and say, okay, guys, understand, if we do what you asked us to do, here's what it's going to cost. Now you need to decide if you really want us to do that, other than saying, no, you can't do that. We're taking
Okay.
it out.
Just, I'm
I think
trying
that's
to,
his point.
I'm trying to frame the question in a way that focuses on what we can or cannot or will not do within the scope of charter review. Give me a second. So what I'm saying is, so you're just talking, Paul, about open space. The example you brought up is an example of the kind of thing that illustrates what you would like to see in terms of the limiting the scope of what 5-pack can do about nixing a recommendation that comes from the Board of Selectmen. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so let's take
If the
open
Board of
space.
Selectmen have approved something, then it
Let's
should be-
take open space out of the discussion
Sure.
and let's focus on the primary issue here is what Paul is hoping for is us to make some sort of change in the charter that would really take 5-pack out of the equation when the Board of Selectmen approves specific use of funds. And Kate, you added an explanation in there when the funds are available, I think. And tell me if I'm nipping this too much. I don't mean to. I'm trying to have this clear so everybody understands exactly what Paul's concern is, and so we can discuss it in as concise terms as possible.
Hey,
Okay, so if I understood Paul's concern, it was that he felt that that 5-pack is going beyond its scope when it eliminates approved expenditures, and that if the Board of Selectmen has approved an expenditure, then what 5-pack ought to be doing is explaining to the Board of Selectmen and potentially the town how that expenditure is going to impact the budget.
Well-
And then if the town doesn't like it, they can take it out or do whatever the town can do. But he feels it shouldn't be 5-pack who decides, no, we're not going to spend that money.
Can I
think-
offer a viewpoint?
Could I add something?
Yeah, Henry, and I think Lisa after that. I'll weigh in on this, please.
I think we
guess
need to
what
know
I
where
was-
we're talking about. Where in the charter does he want to put it? Because 5-pack doesn't have this ability carte blanche. It only has the ability during the budget season. And then when money has to be moved in certain circumstances between line items. Otherwise, we're talking about that statute again. So
Okay.
we really need to put this in context.
See, I guess I was thinking that,
Well, I think
in 5-pack, they get all the budget. I guess I'm talking about at budget time. They get all the information, and what they're doing now is they do say, we don't have enough money to fund such and such. But they tell 5-pack or the Board of Ed what they feel should be cut. I'm thinking that it should be that they say we don't have the money and we can't spend, say, $100,000, and then go to the Board of Ed or Board of Selectmen, and then they decide how it gets cut.
Sorry,
I
guys.
think that's what Paul's looking at. And I think he's talking about only at budget time, because that's the only
Yeah.
time they would be doing that, right?
Yeah, I think it's only at budget time.
Can I weigh in, please?
Okay,
The
please.
only thing I have an issue with is that each of the commissions represent a small portion of people that all share a certain viewpoint. 5-pack's job is to represent everyone in town. So you have an open space commission, or, the library, or the seniors, whatever. They're representing that group of people, or the people that are interested in that. 5-pack is their job and their purview, and same with the Board of Selectmen, is to look at everything. 5-pack's job is to look closely at what money we have and don't. And I have, if you really feel strongly about something, then you need to sell it to the town, and there has to be enough people in town who want that they're going to make a fuss or you present it at the town meeting or something, but that's your job. They're representing everybody, not just open space, not just the fire department, not just the library. They're representing everybody.
Right.
So, right, but Lisa, isn't that, as you said, it's also true of the Board of Selectmen?
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay,
But
so if the Board of
The Board
Selectmen,
of- But the Board of Selectmen does not have as strong a pulse on the finances of the town as FIPAC.
Well,
right,
so,
but
yeah,
if the Board of Selectmen listens to a presentation from some other board or commission and considers it and votes as on behalf of the whole town, yes, that's a good idea, we'd like to approve that. Well, then it goes to FIPAC. Shouldn't it be upon FIPAC to come back and say, okay, you approved this, guys, but in order for us to do this, here's what would happen to the budget. Now, you or the town have to decide whether you want that in the budget or not, as opposed to FIPAC deciding on its own. We're
But
just taking this out.
Typically,
But the-
that's what FIPAC does. They come back to the Board of Selectmen at budget time and there's a conversation that happens.
Right.
It happens.
There's
right, but
no
they,
vote, there's no vote by the selectmen at budget time. The selectmen take the budgets that are coming in from the various agencies. They may, and through Mark, work with the agencies to develop hopefully what's a realistic budget. The
Right.
selectmen then put their gloss on it. They don't, vote to say every one of them is a good idea. They give it to FIPAC and then there's give and take on it. The
Mhm.
only time that there's actually a vote by the selectmen that goes to FIPAC is when you're changing a line item after the budget's in place, or you're dealing with purchasing land under that ordinance. Otherwise, it is kind of a give and take procedure. If FIPAC comes back and says, we want to cut, $10,000 from the zoning commission budget for whatever reason, and the selectmen feel that that's too much and it's better to take it out of the rec department, they'll talk to FIPAC about it, and something will work out. The time when FIPAC has that kind of veto power is we give it to them after we've had the budget meeting and they hear from the town at the town budget meeting, and they can go back and vary line items on their own at that time. And then if the budget is rejected, they can go back on their own and vary line items until such time as it gets approved. And we've done that because we're saying that they are our Board of Finance,
Right.
operating under state statute, and that they have, at that point, they are taking the interests of everybody into
Right.
heart, and their own knowledge of taxation and finance.
Anyone
So
else?
I don't have an opinion about, I mean, I have no position on this.
I want to make sure anyone else can weigh in on it, if you haven't already weighed in on this. I want to get every voice on this that we can. This is an important issue because I think that there's varying opinions on it, and I'd like to make sure, anyone else to speak to that? Okay, then Kate.
So Rick, I just wanted to say, I don't have an opinion. I'm not arguing one side or the other. I was just trying to clarify what I thought Paul was saying.
Okay,
And I still don't feel as though what I thought he was saying is clear. So maybe we should go back to Paul.
but Paul, could you just fill us in? I think we all want to understand exactly, and I don't think we need to identify where in the charter it would be at this point in our discussion. If conceptually we want to pursue this, we'll figure that out at the next step. We don't need to figure that out before we discuss the concept.
Well,
With all due deference to your
had-
comment,
I
Henry.
had headed my email that it would fall under article. See, I guess I go back to the first thing I said, is that I really don't think there's a clear definition of FIPAC. And I think Henry, one of the things is that FIPAC sometimes exercises a lot of responsibilities that I'm not sure it was ever intended for FIPAC to have. But I thought it would go under finance and taxation somehow. But here's what I said, and it's just a couple of sentences. If a town commission or committee makes a proposal which requires an expenditure to the Board of Selectmen, and if it is accepted by the Board of Selectmen, it is incumbent upon FIPAC to find a way to fund the proposal giving sound financial planning. I just believe that who represents the town in this situation is the Board of Selectmen. That's who's and a committee or a commission of dedicated people who are working on a problem or a topic, and then bring a proposal to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen approve it, then it should just be FIPAC's responsibility to say, we have the funding, we don't have the funding right now, we'll have to fund it over 2 years or however. That's what I feel.
The place that it might go is when you're moving something from a line item in a budget that's already been approved. And it may be prudent to have a check and balance and not let FIPAC have the last word, if in fact it has the last word in those circumstances, such that if, as Paul says, an agency requests the funds, the Board of Selectmen say, this is a good idea. They send it to FIPAC. FIPAC says no, then maybe it needs to come back to the Board of Selectmen, who can either override it or send it to a town meeting to consider overriding. But they would, at least at the time of the override, have the benefit of FIPAC's judgment from the financial perspective, which otherwise wasn't there when they first approved it. And so we want to make sure that the ultimate decision gets made after FIPAC's weighed in. We could also say that before the Board of Selectmen approve it, they can ask FIPAC and then make the decision afterwards. But I think we want to make sure that the decision is made after we have the input from the experts that we've entrusted financial decisions to.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. But Henry, help me understand why it's different if this is happening at budget time as opposed to some other time after a budget's been approved.
Because we have opted, unless we change, we have opted to follow the state pattern of saying, if we want a Board of Finance, we authorize the Board of Finance to take on this expertise and to do these things and to make those decisions. So they have some quasi-legislative powers at the budget time to make sure and guard the mill rate and guard the bond rate rating and various other things that none of the rest of us on our boards and commissions, including the Board of Selectmen, are paying any attention to. And that requires them to have, some authority to make some of these decisions. At the budget time, there is a fair amount of give and take. I don't think the problem that Paul speaks of comes up before the time that the budget has actually gone to the town budget meeting and the town meeting for approval. Because at that point in time, the selectmen and the FIPAC have noodled over the budget and come up with something that they're both generally willing to support.
I want to make a clarification here. Give me a moment. So Paul, I'm under the impression, and I don't mean to color what you said, that this probably resides more out of an issue, for example, with regard to open space, where there's money in an open space acquisition fund, and that the money's there. It's not going to impact a budget theoretically, but it has to do with FIPAC's ability to control money that's already been budgeted for a purpose, but now it's for a specific use. Is that accurate? Am I saying that correctly?
Well, that's a that's one possibility.
Okay, is that the most prominent one? I'm trying to understand where this came from you and what your basis of concern was. Have you seen this play out in a way that wasn't what you think is the best possible way for the town in the past? And some example would be helpful, because on the surface, I have utter reverence for the job that FIPAC does. I think they've done a marvelous job of
They have.
running our finances in town.
They
And
have.
so if
One-
we want to take something off of their plate, I'd like to understand why we feel we would want to do that.
One other place where it can come up, apart from the statute that deals with the dedicated open space fund, is if the town wants to buy, or it's before the town to buy a piece of land and to buy it out of surplus in the general fund or something that isn't in a line item already. And at that point, it's a different procedure to move money from the reserve fund into a line item so that there's enough money there to purchase the land. And FIPAC has weighs in at that point in time too, because the amount of money that needs to be moved is likely more than the limits that we've set up that can be moved without it going to a town meeting. So
I go back to the question I asked Paul. Paul, where has this come about that you feel a need for this change, or that would make you want to propose this change?
Can I offer something that I think a light bulb went off about something that Henry said that seems to relate to what I think Paul is complaining about, which is that he feels as though FIPAC is exercising powers it doesn't seem to have in the charter. But what Henry just said that was very helpful to me is that because we've created FIPAC as we have, that it draws powers that are given to it under state statute. And the state statute, of course, isn't in the charter. It exists separate and apart from that. So as you read the charter, you don't see those powers. But what I heard Henry say was, FIPAC has those legislative powers because it gets them from a statute. And that's why they're not in the charter. Did I understand you correctly, Henry?
to some extent, that's the case where the FIPAC is created based on the statute for Board of Finance. And that's why I would suggest that before we fine tune this, we look at where it's going to go, because there may already be references there. There may be references that aren't there that should be there. And that's why, to try to analyze this in context.
But to the extent that Paul is saying that he feels like FIPAC is exercising powers it doesn't inherently have, if it in fact has them, that may be the answer to the question.
Well, what Paul has outlined, I think would be hard to find in the charter where that power actually exists. I don't think.
No, I think what Kate's saying is those powers may be defined by state statute.
State
And
statute.
so understanding
why
where
it's
those
not in this
powers come
charter.
from.
Yeah.
Is that accurate, Kate?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Paul's reading the charter and saying the charter doesn't say that FIPAC has the power to like overrule some request from the Board of Selectmen when it's formulating the budget. And it sounds as though Henry's saying, well, it doesn't say that in the charter because the charter is referring to a statute that says that. So in fact, FIPAC does have that power. We just don't see it when we read the charter. That's what I thought I understood.
I'm so glad you're weighing in. I would ask Rich Roberts to weigh in on this. And
yeah,
give us
I think the powers that FIPAC would be exercising to basically say no to a request are what's in section 9.6, where they get the Board of Selectmen's proposed budget, they get the Board of Education's proposed budget, they review and evaluate it, and may modify the different parts of it before they present it to the the annual town budget meeting. I mean, it's consistent with the powers that a Board of Finance would have under statute, but since you have a charter and you're not calling it a Board of Finance, you have to, basically find the authority. And I think 9.6 provides the authority for FIPAC to, to basically evaluate the requests and decide which ones, get included in the budget and which ones don't.
So I don't want to talk too much, but if I don't ask questions, I'll never understand. So what you said makes perfect sense to me, Rich. My question is, if the Board of Selectmen says to, for example, I'm sorry to keep going back with this, to open space, yeah, we think we should budget, $960,000 to buy so-and-so's land. Do they then put that into the Board of Selectmen's budget?
Yeah, they would
Yeah,
include it in
Okay.
that, or, if they're just going to buy it with tax revenue during the course of the year, that's what they would do if they wanted to do it. I'm getting seasick.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, alternatively, outside the budget process, they could propose it to FIPAC as a special appropriation. And in either case, FIPAC could evaluate it and decide whether to go forward or not. Under the second situation, I think if people didn't like FIPAC's decision, they could, kind of do an end run and petition for a special town meeting, to transfer the funds. But if it's an expenditure or an appropriation that is proposed to be funded as part of the budget, it goes through the Board of Selectmen's portion of the budget to FIPAC under 9.6, and they can forward it along as is, or tweak it, or postpone certain things, or put in half the money to accomplish something. And the last line, I think, is the kind of the consultation and discussion that everybody was sort of looking for. It's like, we're sorry, Board of Selectmen, but given our goal of having a tax increase of no more than 2.5%, we're going to have to put off these 4 of 20 items that you've asked for until next year, and then that budget gets put forward. And the Board of Selectmen, I guess, could either say, all right, yeah, we understand, or no, we think the budget should be defeated unless you put these things in there, or we'll wait until September and fund it in a different way.
Rich, why is it not the case if the Board of Selectmen is out for a $4 million budget and FIPAC comes back and says, we really can only give you a $3 million budget this year? Why isn't it the Board of Selectmen then the authority that should decide how the $3 million gets divvied up in the same way that the board of the school board can do it for its budget? Why is it that FIPAC can at that point nitpick line items that maybe unfairly represents the views of the people on FIPAC as opposed to the views of the people on the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are two parts to the answer. One is, under state statute and as interpreted by the courts, the boards of education are special in terms of, essentially having plenary control over how they spend their appropriation. Under the charter and under statutes, the town side of the budget is different. If if the Board of Selectmen and FIPAC want to have a conversation about, how you get to 3 million as opposed to, we're taking out these 2, 3, 4 items to get you down to the 3 million, they're certainly able to have that conversation.
And they do.
Yeah, I mean, and the alternative would be, during the course of the year, you do special appropriations or line item transfers if the Board of Selectmen is still able to show that they're on track for the $3 million budget, they can move funds to, the things that they want to accomplish. It just is sort of the hard way to get there.
Okay, I want to throw a question back to Paul. So what is it that made you bring this concept forward? And I don't mean to put you on trial. Please don't get the wrong impression. But I think the process has worked overwhelmingly well over many, many years. I think FIPAC has done a very good job. But I have a feeling that there's been a trigger that caused you to want to bring this forward for discussion. And I'd like to understand that.
Yeah, well, I just found that open space had a really tough time with FIPAC. And it's improved with the expansion of, now that we've gotten the state's participation in the purchasing of properties for an expansion of monostate park. But for the longest time, for years, we just seemed to be get no reception from FIPAC whatsoever. They kept wanting to know what our 10-year plan was. I mean, it was like we made presentations and then they would forget what we said. And it was like, this is not really who we should be talking to. I mean, we should be talking to the Board of Selectmen, and then the selectmen approve or disapprove of something. And then FIPAC finds a way to fund it. That's what I've thought.
So Paul, having heard that whole discussion about the operation of the budget review under 9.6, does that like change your perception of whether or not FIPAC it doesn't have the power that it is exercising to your disappointment?
Well, I'm listening to this, and of course I'm learning as everybody else is. I was always concerned that in the charter there was really no definition of FIPAC's responsibilities, that it wasn't clear. If that's in state statute and they're towing the line to that, then so be it, I guess.
So I think then the core question becomes, do we want to, in some way, if it's legally permissible, enable the Board of Selectmen to bypass FIPAC's review in specific circumstances? And that's really what I think the core question is. Would you agree that that's the most important question then?
I guess I
Anyone
don't think
disagree?
we should bypass the review, because I agree. I think FIPAC has done a great job.
Not asking how we feel on that
Yeah,
question. I'm just asking, that's the question that we should have framed in front of us. I don't want to go down the path of what we want to do. I want to just know that that's the question we're framing. I'm trying to keep this, we've been all over the place in this discussion, and I think we've all learned a lot. I don't think it's been wasted time in any manner whatsoever, but I want the question that is important to us to be clear and on the table. And that is, and as I understand it, Paul, is you're looking for FIPAC to basically be out of the loop with regard to mandated expenditures by the Board of Selectmen. Is that accurate?
Well, I just framed it a little differently, that when something was approved from a committee or commission, something approved by the Board of Selectmen, that it's FIPAC's responsibility to fund that in a responsible manner, even if it can't be funded immediately or whatever. But
so I would say I respect your desire for that. I'm more comfortable leaving the final word with FIPAC. I don't want the Board of Selectmen to say you have to do this and spend this money without FIPAC being able to have control, because I've loved the control that they've exercised,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's been wielded in a way that's detrimental to the interests of the community. And so I just, on this one, I don't agree with you, Paul, but I respect your opinion, and I wanted to understand why and where it came from. And I, we're probably in two different places on it, but respectfully so,
Sure.
Yeah, I
okay?
think we should go through 5-pack. Like I said before, I would just like to have 5-pack say, we're gonna cut so much money, and then the Board of Selectmen decides where it gets cut. And I guess it's with the discuss, I mean, there's a discussion now, but they tell us where to cut it, and then we just, we discuss it, but it really, usually it's where they want to cut it.
And
I'd
I'm
rather be
okay with
open,
it as an individual, I don't mean to speak for anyone else.
right?
I wanted to take this concern that you had, Paul, and I wanted it on the table to be discussed in depth, and I didn't want to just gloss over anything. I had a perspective on it. I wanted to understand better what it was that you were asking us to contemplate, and I think I understand what you're looking for and why you want it, and the why is probably less important than what you want. And I'm not, that's not something I'd like us to pursue as a group, but I'm only one voice, and I don't want to overpower anyone else's perspective on it. I want to get kind of a straw poll. Do we want to pursue this as a modification at some place in our charter, or do we want to just pass over this and move on to the next issue as a group? I'm asking.
In my
Any
opinion,
thoughts?
in my opinion, what 5-pack does is an important check and balance on what the Board of Selectmen proposes. And the discussion and the way the town works together through the Board of Selectmen and 5-pack. And as I said before, I remember Ernie telling me, I got to be careful because I'm the one who gets the phone calls from the senior citizen who can't afford to have their taxes raised. So they're approaching it from a little different point of view from the different boards and commissions, and they really try very hard to, from what I've seen over the years I've been doing this, either on Board of Ed or on Board of Selectmen, I have nothing but admiration for how 5-pack conducts itself.
So I don't think what we're talking about is whether or not taxes are going up.
That isn't what I said. I
understand. But
I'm just saying that Ernie is the one who takes that call.
I get it. But if I understand what Judy said and what Rich said, what goes on between 5-pack and the Board of Selectmen by design is different from what goes on between 5-pack and the Board of Ed. 5-pack can go back to the Board of Ed and say, you're going to get $500,000 less, you figure it out. But they go back to the Board of Selectmen and say, we're taking these dollars out of these specific line items, and we can have a discussion about it, but the final decision is 5-pack's. Did I understand that correctly, Rich?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what Judy was saying is, and I don't know whether this would solve Paul's concern.
Yeah, it would go a long
Judy
way.
is saying is, gee, I wish it were possible for the Board of Selectmen's budget to be treated like the Board of Education's budget. I don't know if that is possible. Maybe that's legally not possible. But I don't know that that would be any worse for the town, for the Board of Selectmen to have more autonomy over figuring out which bucket a certain cut comes out of. Do you think that would be a problem, Lisa?
I know that the Board of that 5-pack would like to be able to tell the Board of Ed that they don't want certain money spent in certain places. And it was a state Board of Education and the state that made that they can't.
Right.
And I've never had a problem with it because it's always been a good conversation. And it seems to me that even on the Board of Ed, they'll take the recommendations, they'll kind of point out, well, you could sit to the Board of Ed, money here and there, but they won't tell you, but they'll give suggestions. So they can't make them take it out of there, but they can offer a suggestion where they can find that money. So I don't, I've seen the process for 10 years now or so, and it's quite impressive how FIPAC conducts itself. And they really know what we have for money, and they've been able to keep our tax, we're a really desirable place to live for a reason. And one of them is, for many reasons, but one of them is that we have a real stable tax base.
But
If you-
do you
I
have a
think we all
problem?
agree on that.
Yeah, I don't think those are the issues. I think BIPAC has done a good job, but do you think it's a good idea for the Board of, because Board of Selectmen gets everybody coming to us and doing their presentations, and kind of presenting why they want so much money. And then we send it to FIPAC. FIPAC doesn't always hear all the presentations.
I've seen
But-
Ernie
but-
there. They listen, they read the minutes, they
No,
see the
read the minutes,
presentations.
But they don't hear the presentations as, they don't get people coming to them. Sometimes they may ask, but then the different commissions are doing it twice. So it just doesn't happen as often.
And let me go back to what I tried to throw out there as a concept for us to just either reject or move forward with. Do we want to give the Board of Selectmen the power to override FIPAC? Isn't that really the question?
See,
Yeah,
I guess,
right.
I guess.
I'm not
That
sure-
sounds like what,
Well, in terms of line items, but I'm not sure that selectmen want to be put in that hot spot. I mean, somebody's going to have to be in that hot spot as to how to divide up the
and I'm
budget.
stating personally, I don't want to make a change in that direction because
Yeah.
I don't feel that we have a problem to solve. Open space may feel that they will have wanted things to be handled a little bit different in the past. But overall, I think we have a process that works overwhelmingly well. And I don't want to ever say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But in this case, it seems to be working well. That's all I'm saying. So the question is, I was trying to frame this so we know whether or not we're going to spend more time on it or move past this concern. And then we probably won't get into doing any of our regular review tonight. And that's okay, because Paul, your concerns, I wanted to look at in depth, and I wanted to have a discussion about them. And this may be one of our most productive meetings to this point, even if it doesn't come down to either making a change or maybe we do make a change to what we're going to recommend. And it would take more study to understand what we would put into the charter to make a change that would accommodate what you wanted. But I wanted it to be clear what it was that was being asked to be considered. And I wanted to be clear about how the Charter Review Commission felt about that type of request. So
I have
I'm
one
not in
other
favor of making
question.
a change to the charter on that. Lisa, sounds like Lisa, you're not in favor. Kate, I don't think you expressed a perspective on that. Judy, I'm not sure that you did. I want to make sure I go through all the members. Mark, Art, I think, am I encompassing every member who's here? I'd like to get a perspective on how you feel, and I want to know that you're comfortable that I haven't short shifted a conversation about this.
I would like to see just that one change that BIPAC says what, we're going to cut so much money, and then the Board of Selectmen makes a decision. Do I see it as a real big deal? No, but I think it would be, I think it would be helpful, but I don't see it as a real big deal.
I'd like to suggest a place we could make some.
Can't hear you, Henry.
Can't hear you.
I'd like to suggest a place we could make some wording change if we went to 9.6. Let's look at the last.
Let's just talk about this issue here right now and not move over to 9.6, because I think this issue is about Paul's.
Yeah, I'd like to
request to
propose I'd like to propose a compromise that I think might work for people. That's all.
Can I make a motion that might help us focus any discussion and decide whether we should pursue it or not? Like,
Sure.
I would make a motion that we pursue changing the current authority of FIPAC when it comes to the budget. And then we can either say yay or nay as a group. And if the answer is nay, then we can move on. If the answer is yay, then we can allocate more time to address it either now or in the future.
Sorry, I don't think I understand the motion. Could you say it again?
Should we consider, should we consider changing the authority that FIPAC has over the budget?
So that it's more like what the Board of what the Board of Ed has?
It's purposely worded very generally, because if our group by a majority says no, then it's into this discussion. If they say yes, then we can get into the details.
Ah,
I feel like we're getting into the weeds already, but we haven't decided as a group whether to even,
And that-
if we
Well,
have
that's
I
that.
true,
appreciate
you're
your
right.
feedback, but that's really where I was trying to lead this. Or do we want to pursue any change here with regard to the way FIPAC's authority exists over the non-school board budget?
Right.
And I'm
Somebody can
suggesting, no, I
second it,
don't
we
want
can-
to.
we
I
can
think,
vote and
I
then
don't
go
mean to,
from there.
yeah. The way you phrase that, and I don't want to do this as a vote per se, I'd like to garner what the position of the commission is, and then that'll guide our course of action. I don't want to overly formalize this. Let's not call it a motion per se, but where are we on this? If I could hear from each of the members. Mark, how do you feel about this?
I think it's fine the way it is, and we should move on to more important things.
Okay. Let's see, Lisa, Art, any thoughts?
I think it's fine. Leave it alone.
Okay, I don't know, there's 2 people who would like to see a change, and I think 4 who don't feel a change is needed. So let's move past this issue at this point,
Okay.
okay?
so am I one of the
I-
people who doesn't think a change is needed?
I'm sorry,
I said, are you counting me as a person who doesn't think a change is needed?
I forgot to count you.
Ah,
I was wondering, I thought there
okay,
was some.
so after hearing what everybody has to say, I'm kind of persuaded by hearing from someone, from Judy as a selectman, who's also been on FIPAC, saying, that she would like to see FIPAC, the Board of Selectmen, have more of the kind of control that the school board has. And I haven't heard anybody say why that would be bad. Assuming it doesn't, it doesn't affect people's concern about, well, it wouldn't affect the overall budget, therefore it wouldn't affect the overall taxation. What would be bad
We,
about the Board of
assumption-
Selectmen having more to say about where in their budget cuts come from? And that's what I haven't
Okay.
heard. And so not having heard that, I would be in favor of considering it. Now, it doesn't mean you couldn't talk me out of it once somebody said, well, it would be terrible because of this. But I
Right.
haven't heard that.
well,
I've never felt as being on the Board of Selectmen that FIPAC was overly strict, that we disagreed. They usually were persuasive in where the cuts they thought we should make were, and it was done very with respect. They never said, well, we're not going to give you the money for this. It was never, ever done like that.
No,
And
you're right.
on Board of Ed, there were times as a Board of Ed member when I didn't agree with the superintendent's budget, when I was really happy, I would have been really happy if FIPAC could have said, nah, not this one. So I would like to see the town have more control over the Board of Ed. So I wish that the FIPAC could do that to the Board of Ed
Oh,
but they can't.
they
Interesting.
can't.
because of the legislature.
Right.
Okay, so here we have it. We have 3 members saying that some sort of change to the FIPAC's powers would be advisable, and we have 4 members not in favor of it. Let's move past this for now. I think we're going to have another discussion about it, and maybe something will come about that changes this. But I think we have a clear understanding of what it is Paul's concern was and where each of us stand at this point, and that may change. That being said, I'm going to suggest we don't even get into the regular review, starting with item 4 tonight. Because I like to keep these meetings to about an hour, maybe go an hour and 10 minutes worst case. I don't think we're going to accomplish much in terms of getting into the regular review, but at the next meeting, let's get right into starting with item 4 review. We'll go through that. If there's any other items that weren't incorporated in the packet that need to be, we'll have a time to address that. But does anyone want to proceed differently?
I'd
No,
like
but
to,
I do have one question. I would like to hear what Henry's thought was about a compromise on this. At some
why
point,
don't,
Thank you.
doesn't have to be right now.
well, why don't I put it together so that it can be circulated before the next meeting?
Okay,
That's great.
Well, that's
Sounds
a good
good.
idea.
I
Thank you
agree. It
for
would be nice
bringing
to,
that up. Thank you. I didn't mean to gloss over that, Henry.
No,
I
that's
think this,
fine.
this is going to sound corny, but to have a forum where we can have widely diverging views, but an overwhelming amount of respect, I appreciate.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I didn't think we were going to take up the entire hour with my,
I knew that this was coming from a point of passion with you, Paul, and I didn't want to gloss over it.
okay. But I'm respect the commission, and I think we've had good discussion.
Well, and it
Very,
turned out to be a very interesting issue for
Yeah.
me, but maybe that's because I'm just, not as familiar with this as, Judy and Lisa and, so,
Yeah, it's pretty fundamental.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
right, it's at the core of our
is.
town government.
right, right.
Can I make a recommendation too, to add on? It's Mark
Mark.
Walter. I would just ask for Henry and Rich to also look at 7G, which is the definition of Financial Planning Allocation Commission, and see if that needs to be improved. Because what I'm hearing is that their powers are not clearly understood, or the protocols in different situations. And I don't know if that needs to be looked at. I know we'll eventually get there, but since that's tying into this whole discussion, the definition of BIPAC, because my concern is we keep saying state statute covers it, but state statute covers boards of finance, not
Yeah.
FIPACs.
No, I think it's Article 9 of your charter that, in a variety of places lays out what FIPAC's duties and obligations and powers are. At the root of it, it's the budget making authority of the town. And the various sections in Article 9 explain how that function is carried out.
We'll take a look at that for you too, Mark.
Okay.
I'd like to ask Rich, how are we doing on our timing calendar? If we continue to meet twice a month, are we going to get through what we need to in a time fashion to give selectmen the chance to review this in a timely manner?
Well, let me unfull screen this so that I can look back.
hello, everybody.
Everybody.
Huh?
When is the next meeting? I kind of feel like I've lost a grip on the schedule.
It's, I think Thursday the 23rd, is that? No, that's not the 23rd. Thursday, the 22nd.
I have it in my calendar.
No, Thursday is not the 22nd.
Thursday, the 22nd.
Huh?
Yeah, Thursday, the 22nd is our next meeting.
Okay.
Earth Day.
Birthday, Henry?
No, Earth Day.
Birthday. It's my brother's birthday.
Let's see.
Birthday hasn't passed yet?
Earth Day. The
Earth.
22nd of April is Earth Day.
EARTH.
God, I thought it had already passed.
No.
No.
No, you got another couple weeks. No, 11 days,
Yeah.
9 days.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting close, because looking at the calendar of important dates, the deadline for the town clerk to forward it to the Board of Selectmen is May 15th. But that's after your second public hearing And that's after your draft report. So I think you're kind of bumping up against it here.
Wait, we have to have 2 public hearings before May 15th?
You've already had one. You had one right at the beginning. You have to
Oh,
have
that's
a
right.
second
Okay.
one after you've completed your draft report.
Oh, boy.
And I think we've got to get through 4 through 9, or 4 through the end, and there's a lot. I think we did a lot to deal with 9 tonight, but there's a lot to get through, and then we've got to walk through it one more time again to see the changes that, we
So-
discussed and agreed to last time. So
Next meeting, I'm gonna be a taskmaster and get us through the whole thing by hook or by crook. Because we have a meeting on the 22nd, and then we have another meeting on the 11th of May, and that's when next meeting, we're gonna have to get through this so we can have the public hearing at the proposed meeting date on the 11th of May. So
do we have the public hearing after we have our report generated?
Yes.
We need
oh,
to
so
have
we don't have
another,
the public hearing by the 15th.
we need to have another meeting sometime during the last week in April or the first week in May, I think, in order to make this happen.
Well, we've got a meeting scheduled for the 11th of May. I think that would do this in time, unless you want to add one more meeting.
Well, we have to have a meeting at which we approve the report before we have the public hearing, I believe.
Yeah.
So let's see if we get through 4 through 9 at our next meeting, and I will be pushing hard to limit discussion to only pertinent things then. And at that time, on the 22nd, if we need to add a meeting between the week of the 4th through the 2nd through the 8th, then we'll add a meeting then, okay?
Okay, hang
Okay,
on.
sounds
If we get through it all on the 22nd, there still has to be time for it to be amalgamated, the wording to be drafted, and for it to be circulated again for board approval. And once the board approves it, then I suspect there has to be a certain amount of time. Can we approve it after we've already noticed the public hearing, Rich? I would hope we could do that, right?
Well, I'd have to look at the exact statute, but I think you can schedule the public hearing, but the draft report would be what the hearing is about. So,
It has to be available to people.
Yeah.
On a period of time in front of, and May 15th.
Let's proceed with what I suggested unless anyone disagrees. So
Well,
our
I
next,
just have one suggestion about it, Rich.
what's that?
Rather than going through paragraph by paragraph and actually saying, well, in this paragraph, we're making this choice, does everyone agree? Could we not all read our red line copies and come back to the next meeting and say, okay, who's got a problem on page 1, 2, 3, 4? And if you don't, just keep going. Because a lot of this is very simple. It's, a lot of it's editorial, and we probably don't need to discuss it, and it'll take forever, and we'll all want to kill ourselves.
So we'll get through 4 through 9 at the next meeting because that's going to be the format. If you have an objection, bring it up. Otherwise, we're going to gloss over the minor proposed wordsmithing changes. All right.
Everybody needs to look at 1 through 3 too, because there are open questions in the margin in 1 through 3 that aren't resolved yet, that are going to have to be revisited. And I come back, Rick, and respectfully suggest it's a lot easier to pick out a date for a potential extra meeting now before we're on top of it, while people have their calendars relatively free. If we wait until the 22nd, it may become very difficult to find that date.
Doesn't seem possible to me, Rick, that we won't need another meeting.
Okay. Then what's everyone's preference? We have the week of the 2nd through the 8th of May, or do we want to aim for another meeting the week after the 22nd? That's the time frame, April 25th through May 1st, that week.
Well, I'm going to be away for a few of those days, but the world's not going to end if I miss a meeting. So you guys do what you want. Let me get my calendar.
Why don't we, Henry, that's a good suggestion. Thank you. why don't we go for Tuesday, the 27th for an additional meeting? Does that make sense to everybody?
That looks fine to me.
Your clerk is not available.
Oh,
I have another meeting that night.
And would Wednesday, the 28th work for everybody?
I can't be
That's-
there then.
That's a
Do that one.
5-pack meeting. For the
Then we've
budget.
got the 29th, a Thursday.
I could do that.
That seemed to be a good, okay.
Yeah, I could do that too.
Yep,
That's a week after our 22nd. Okay, let's go on May 29th. We'll schedule a meeting for then.
Okay.
April 29th?
Yeah.
All
I
right,
can-
April 29th. It's in my calendar.
I put it in my calendar.
The paper calendar. I'm still from the old school.
I have it in my, I'm using my phone calendar. Never
Okay.
used to.
Thank you for that suggestion. All right, then I'll, the suggestion too, was it Kate that said, let's go through and just bring up what we want to bring up. And let's not go through the whole charter.
Right.
We will make sure with the open-ended questions in 1 through 3 are addressed. And then whatever you want addressed in the rest, make sure you have a list coming into that next meeting. And we're going to try hard to get through sections 4 through 9, plus whatever the open-ended questions are.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. I'll make a motion
Thank
that
you.
we,
Goodbye.
I second.
I'll make a
Second.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you all.
I
Bye.
second that.
We're
Okay, all those
adjourning
in
at
favor? I'm gonna
8:07.
call it unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Holy shit.